My name is Alex Caserta. I recently retired from a 34-year career as a visual arts instructor in order to embark on a new adventure. As a photographer, my goal is to reveal historical information while shedding new light on the people and places that sustain our rich cultural heritage. This is an opportunity for us to discover the farms, food, and flavors of our beautiful state. This is a time for us to explore the diverse wonders in our own backyard. This is Harvesting Rhode Island. I'm here in Saunderstown today with Polly, and we are at Robin Hollow Farm. Polly, can you tell me how long you've been here?
We have lived here since early 2007. We bought the farm in late 2005, but we bought from an estate, so we had to do a bunch of work plus prepare the soil.
So there were no flowers growing when you started?
Well, there might have been a couple right around the house, but other than that, no.
And how long did it take you to actually get the farm going?
Well, I started with just me all day long. And this piece that we're next to here is about 1.5 acres, so that was our focus for that first year or so. By the next year, I hired somebody. By the third year, Mike was able to join me full-time on the farm, and we've been exploding ever since then.
Now, Mike mentioned that you have some other acreage up the street from here?
We rent from the Narrow River Land Trust, and we are really pleased to be part of that organization.
Now, I know you don't do retail on this location, but you do go to farmers markets.
We go to farmers markets. We have open houses here just twice a year. So we have our plant sale every Mother's Day, and that's our big, welcome, see the farm, check us out. And but the rest of the time we're at farmers markets on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
And where are the farmers markets?
Wednesdays we're in Newport, which is great. That's my hometown.
Okay.
And we're there from 2 to 6, and that's perfect for a community that's really focused on being busy on the weekends. So a lot of people will come and do all of their flower arranging on Wednesday and Thursday, and then they're all set till the next week. And then our Saturday markets are Hope Street Market in Providence at Lippett Park, and then also Casey Farm in Saunderstown. We're there from May through October. Besides
doing retail at the farmers markets, you also do quite a few weddings per year.
We do, and it depends a little bit on the number, depending on how big they are or small they are. This year I think we're slated to do at least 80. Some of those are literally a few bouquets and a few boutonnieres, and some of them are significantly larger.
Now, both you and Mike were part of a national organization. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what the name is?
Absolutely. Because we were in vegetables before, there was so much to learn about flowers. It's a hugely complicated way to farm. We turned immediately to the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers, and they focus mainly on things that don't ship from South America. Delicate crops like this Philadelphus mock orange that I'm holding in my hand right now, for example. And I learned tons through that organization. They were so incredibly helpful to us. So Mike and I wanted to give back. I started off as a Northeast Regional Director and then finally became president a few years ago. And Mike has also served as vice president for the same organization.
There are a lot of farmers in the United States who are growing cut flowers today.
Well, there are still quite a few, but there's vastly less than there were 20, 30 years ago. And a lot of that had to do with our drug policy. We wanted to encourage people in South America to grow other crops besides the cocaine or whatever. And so, short-sightedly, in my opinion, the government decided to have no tariffs on any cut flowers being imported to the United States, which then made those with they're at the equator, they have steady day length, they don't have our seasonal issues. They had obviously a cheaper labor cost as well. So they were bringing in significantly cheaper flowers. Rhode Island, for instance, was famous as a carnation grower for decades and decades and decades. We had greenhouses all over the place with millions of stems of carnations. And every single one of those growers, entirely east of the Mississippi, there's basically no carnation growers at all, because of the fact that they were coming in at 20 cents each, 15 cents each, something like that. So now we've lost 90% of our cut flower farms in the United States since 1990.
What you offer is still something a little bit different and out of the ordinary from going to the local floral shop that are bringing flowers in from all different parts of the world.
Absolutely. And I think what we really can offer is our diversity. Mike and I are serious plant people. We love plants. We're constantly trying new crops. seeing if a certain shrub will hold in water, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of really good florists in the state of Rhode Island, so I don't want to just, you know, despair any of them. But we work really hard. We grow over 70 different crops here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Greenhouses with Mike at Robin Hollow Farm. Mike, can you tell me what we have in the flats over here?
We got a little bit of everything here. We got some snapdragons, amaranth, dahlias, mums. This house is our propagation house. We start all of our seeds, we take all of our cuttings, and we overwinter some of our stock plants in this. We keep this running year-round with heat or fans, depending on the time of year.
So as we're walking down,
amaranth,
what do we...
Mums, we've got some feverfew. We do a dill. We do a lot of herbs.
Oh, a lot of herbs.
Dill
Okay.
and some basil, all that kind of stuff. We've got asters, sunflowers. I got the sunflowers covered because the birds keep sneaking in and trying to eat the seeds. Other things we've got going here are our succulents. They are very popular at the farmers market, but also very popular with the brides and at the wedding time. We'll take and cut the heads off of those and wire them in and add them into bridal bouquets, but also we'll use them in floral arrangements as well. They're fun to have, and people are really enjoying them. We'll take a tray of those to market as well.
Well, these must be incredible in a floral bouquet for a wedding.
Yeah, it works out pretty well. So you just kind of take and snip that, and just like any other flower, you strip off the lower parts, and you got that cute little thing in the flower.
That's great.
The only challenge with these guys, they're a little heavy, so if you put 2 dozen of them in a bridal bouquet, they do add a fair amount of weight.
Very organic.
Right.
And a lot of texture.
Yeah, and those neutral tones are really popular right now with these kind of more plainer neutral coloring. So that works out great. So we have this constant supply of succulents. We're propagating our own, and then we're selling them. If they get too big for that, then we sell them off as planters or something like that.
What are these large leaves over here with the red and the green? I've never seen this.
Isn't that a great one?
Yeah.
That's just another succulent. Oh.
That's incredible.
They do a great job.
And they're nice and thick. They've got beautiful color. And how large will these grow?
Well, a lot of these are going to go to flower. You can see, like these guys right here are starting to shoot a flowering shoot up. So that's kind of a different aspect of succulents, which I really like. But the plant will take all of its energy and just shoot some flower stalks out.
Oh,
but they're not
okay.
going to get too much bigger. It depends a little bit on the container you keep them in.
Yep.
So.
Well, let's take a look in some of the other greenhouses.
Okay, great.
Mike, what do we have growing in this particular greenhouse?
We have, this is our lily house. We've got Oriental lilies. They're the smelly ones, the ones that everybody likes. And the Asiatic lilies, those are the colorful ones that don't have the smell. And then we've got some nice calla lilies over here as well. The florists really love the calla lilies because those ones are hard to ship. They get crinkled and creased in the boxes when they're brought in from other countries. So ours are nice and fresh, and we have a variety of colors. And we're going to stop at the florist with that truck today on the way to the farmer's market, and they'll probably buy at least half of what we brought.
Yeah, they're just beautiful.
So, and the cow lilies are a great one. The lilies are too because they have such a great long vase life. You know?
Yes, they do.
The lilies are like 2 weeks, but the callows, people have gone even 3-week vase life on those
Oh,
things.
I didn't know that.
So that works out pretty well.
And we have one more greenhouse?
Yeah, the dahlias are next door. Let's go see those.
Mike, this is our third greenhouse that you have?
Yeah, so we've got dahlias growing in crates in here. This is just to get us a jump on the season. We plant about 1,800 dahlias out in the field, but these are already blooming. We've already been harvesting them. They are very popular with the weddings these days.
Okay.
So, well, the one you're sniffing there is our most popular one. It's very popular. It's called Cafe au lait dahlia. The brides all want the Cafe au lait. And
the fullness, the size.
full, it's that color that's really unpopular still right now. But then there's the big dinner plate dahlias. There's the medium-sized ones that are a little more popular with us. And then there's the smaller ones that are great for us to use in boutonnieres or smaller type work. So we could try to grow a variety of them.
You have some larger ones here.
Yeah, some large white ones. That's Thomas Edison, I think, there.
Incredibly large.
That's not even all the way open yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are beautiful. So what we have in here, Mike, is that this is kind of like a high tunnel where you can pull the sides up a little bit.
Yeah, we can roll the sides up for ventilation, but we also have heat. Technically, I think a high tunnel, they usually don't have heat, but it doesn't really matter. It's nice to have a little bit of frost protection for the fall and the spring, and this is we'll cycle a bunch of stuff through these greenhouses throughout the year.
And these also go into the ground at an early stage back in February, or?
We'll start taking cuttings off of our dahlia tubers in February, yes. We'll take one dahlia tuber and make 12 cuttings off of that, and those cuttings will go into these crates.
Okay, explain that to me if you could. When you say a tuber, what does that mean exactly?
So tuber is like a potato, but the dahlia it's like a storage unit for the stem. It's produced from the stem by the plant. So then you plant that tuber and then it'll send these little shoots up. So if you had a shoot, let me show you. I will use this as a demo. So if you had this shoot, it wouldn't be this tall coming off of a tuber. It'd be about this big. And then you would strip off this foliage. And then you'd probably snip it again. And we dip these little nodes, these leaf nodes, that's where the leaves form, but that's also where the roots happen. That's where the action happens. So you take that and you dip it in a little rooting hormone and stick it in some soil. And so again, the plant will keep shooting these shoots up, and we just keep cutting them off and rooting them and multiplying out the numbers by that.
So what's a rooting hormone?
It's got a little bit of antifungal in there to keep it from rotting, but mostly it's got chemicals in there that encourage root production. That's how we propagate and ramp it up.
You could really get quite a few plants propagated then from the tubes. And
right. We used to dig up all of our tubers. Now we dig up a few or less tubers and propagate more that way by cuttings.
And when you reuse this soil into the ground, will you actually take the roots of the plants out, or will you turn those over?
We'll probably compost the whole thing, both the soil and the plants and the roots, and then once that's all composted, it'll go out onto the property.
Okay.
So we go down, take a look at the rest of the field?
Sure. Mike, these are the ones that smelled like orange?
Yeah, that's the mock orange, the Philadelphias. That's what Polly had when you guys were talking earlier. These are small shrubs. We just planted these last year, but eventually they were nice full-grown shrubs, and we'll be able to cut hard on them a little more later. Right now we're letting them just get up to their
Now, will these stay in the ground all year long?
Yeah, these are year-round, yep.
And do you have to cover them or anything like that?
Nope, they're pretty hardy. So, same as with Baptisia. This is the next one. We've already been hacking away this spring, but got nice big purple flowers on them.
Yeah. And what do we have here?
This is Alchemilla, lady's mantle. We use a lot of this. It's a great little filler flower. We've been clear cutting it. This is our last quarter bed to cut. We have 2 big beds of this. It's a perennial, hardy perennial, and but it's a great filler. That electric yellow, neon green, whatever color that is, really fills in great with bouquets and arrangements and things.
You have a large selection in a relatively small area, and there's a lot to pick from and to use in your business.
Right.
Well, thanks very much, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for coming out today. It's nice to meet you.
Same here. We're here at Manfredi Farms today in Westerly, Rhode Island, with Richard Manfredi, the owner. We're sitting outside on a nice, comfortable day. Tell me a little bit about the history of Manfredi's farm.
Well, it started before I was here, of course. You know, my grandfather came over from Italy and purchased the place. It was at a bank sale because that was Depression time. And, you know, they worked in factories and they had a few milk cows. And they started raising a few potatoes, and it went from there. Over time, I don't remember a lot in the 50s, but you know, my mother milked cows by hand. They raised chickens and sold them to the local restaurants, and I can't tell you how hard it was, but I can tell you by what we do that it wasn't easy. I've heard stories about, you know, a horse pulling a plow, and you know, you're pulling a one-bottom 12-inch plow and you gotta walk behind it and steer it. Now I run a 110 horsepower tractor with a 5-bottom 16-inch plow that plows 1.5 times the width of the tractor.
Yeah.
And I can plow more in an hour than they could plow in a week. But that's all they had. Everything was done by hand. Potatoes were picked by hand. Hay was pitchforked. It was not easy by any means. You know, now we try to work a lot smarter than harder. You know, we have to, because it's just me and my son Christian and my daughter Melanie. And it's a massive job. My father told me, he says, I hope you're ready, because it's a big job.
Certainly is.
He wasn't wrong, not by any means.
Yeah. And you have a couple of greenhouses out in the back. What are you growing in the greenhouses?
Specialize in tomatoes. Now, people call them greenhouses. They're high tunnels. High tunnels means they're vented on all ends. The cover is just an environmental protection. We heat them early in the spring. We start in April, and you keep them closed, and you heat them, and you ventilate them during the day. A greenhouse is totally closed. It's ventilated by fans, and the humidity is controlled, where ours isn't. You know, and we don't plant greenhouse tomatoes. We plant field tomatoes that have been tested by various seed growers and colleges to perform well in a high tunnel. Greenhouse tomatoes will not grow in a high tunnel, and regular field tomatoes do not so good in a high tunnel.
You're how close to the water here?
2 miles at the closest point to the ocean.
It's going to certainly change the conditions on your growing.
The environmental effects are tremendously different than inland. Even the town of Westerly is maybe 5 miles inland, and you've got buildings and trees and hills and valleys. Here, we get a nor'easter, we're subject to an onslaught straight off the ocean, all the moistures, the cold, the fog, and if there's storms ride the coast. If there's a disease in Georgia, it brings us all the good stuff that it picked up down there. Being close to the ocean, we do have an advantage. Right now, you notice a breeze. It's always coming off the ocean. It comes from the southwest. It's always. Today, I think it's coming in. Actually, it's not. Today, it's coming out of the north or to the southeast, and that's rare. But it's still a nice cool breeze today.
It is.
But we will, inland, you'll melt at 85, 90 degrees. And we look at our thermometer, it's 68, 72. But it slows the crops down, but it speeds us up. But we can work a lot better.
Now, your claim to fame is the freshness of your products.
We're from the field to the table the same day. We very rarely carry things over, and never refrigerated. Never. We don't have any refrigeration in the store. We will not put them in the refrigerator. The minute you do, you change the flavor. Tomatoes should never be refrigerated. Within 3 hours of refrigeration, you lose over 50% of the flavor. Now, California tomato or a Florida tomato starts out tasting as good as mine. But your supermarkets, how long can we keep them? You know, put them in a refrigerator in the field, and they're refrigerated the whole time. You take them out, put them on your counter. Before you know it, they get soft, they get moldy, and they're done. And the flavor's gone before you buy them. I don't care whether they're cherry tomatoes, whether they're big tomatoes. They're programmed to fail on flavor from the minute they pick them. And you can't buy a tomato in a supermarket that is less than 5 days old. And you want to listen to big companies like Walmart's that advertise that they buy local? Well, send the manager down to talk to me, because I don't know who he is. And Walmart's definition of local is 65 miles an hour in a trailer truck, 24 hours a day, 1 day's travel time. That's almost 2,000 miles. They're calling that local. I don't know any Rhode Island farmers that sell to Walmart's. So what is local?
Yeah. So you really have to rely on the public coming to buy your products.
If the public, you know, you need to know your farmer. You need to know who you're buying from. You need to trust them. You need to know what they're made of.
Let me ask you a question. Would you recommend young people getting into farming? I've met quite a few that are young who are getting into it. They're excited about it. They have a plan, and they have, I think, a good life.
It is a good life. You don't have any time to yourself, but take a look around here. This is my backyard. Why do I want to go home? This is what I do. I come here in the morning. I enjoy the day. I don't have to listen to anybody. I don't have to answer to anybody. We grow what we want.
It's all in the flavor, and that's why people come back.
My motto is good ain't cheap and cheap ain't good. You can buy cheap corn, you can buy a cheap steak, you can buy a cheap tomato. Don't expect it to taste like this. It's not going to happen. These people pick lettuce right out of the bed and take it home, you know, and put it in a salad. And they say, my God, you don't even need salad dressing because it's got the flavor. Or a tomato, we pick daily. And people don't get a tomato any more than, I would say, 2 days maximum. Summer squash, same way. We pick in the morning, sell them during the day.
Well, why don't we take a walk back there and see what you have?
That's good.
Okay. Richard, what do we have in front of us here?
These are cherry tomatoes. We've grown more and more of them over the years. People really like them. If you want a tomato with top flavor, then you go with a cherry tomato. Big tomatoes are nice. They can taste really good. These things are outstanding. We started with a few plants, and now we've got 3 rows. So that means there's 60 plants to a row. That means there's 180 in here. Probably going to plant another 250 out in the field in stages. And people will buy these when we put a tray out that says try them. And they'll buy them skeptically because we don't sell them cheap. They're not cheap to grow, a lot of work and labor intensive. And they'll go out and buy them and they'll, I'll try them. And they'll walk out to their car and you see them throw a couple in their mouth. And before you know it, they set that box on a seat and they come back in and buy some more. See, these are indeterminate, and you notice the cages are 6-7 feet tall. These will actually go up and wrap around those bars before they're done. The problem with them is, and they look a little raggedy today, is you got to tuck them. See,
Yeah.
You get like this, and they will just head for the ground.
Yeah, I mean,
You have to pull them back and weave them.
the branches are quite large and
Yeah, they
healthy.
are.
I mean, it's
You just run them in like that. You can tie them,
Yeah.
but you don't have to.
they'll continue to grow up.
The plant's natural ability is to go that way.
Yep.
So that even though this branch is going sideways, the head of it will turn skyward, and it'll either end up coming out. See, that one's already turned since yesterday. See how this one's got a bend in it? Yesterday that got tucked in sideways. Look at the bend.
Yeah, yeah.
they're going to head for the sky. So the idea is to take this and, you know, it's hot in here, but you got to do it. You push that inside, just head it inside. It'll do the rest. You come back through in 3 or 4 days and do the same thing. These are large tomatoes. They grow the same. You got to tuck them in. These will come up here. And another trick, if they get too big on big tomatoes, our object is we want big, nice tomatoes. When they get up this high, you want all the power to grow tomatoes. I just come in and take the tops of the plants and break them right off and throw them out the door. Now the plant feeds down there. Instead of feeding growth, it feeds tomatoes. You got to know what you're doing. Certain days you can't break them off. If it's a bright sunny day like this with wind, you're okay. If you come in and break them off on a damp, foggy day, what I tell you about southern storms bringing every disease there is, pathogens grow in the moisture. They'll go in that open wound. You'll come back in here in a couple days and that whole row will be dead with no warning.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy as just throwing a seed in the ground and watching it grow. It's intensive, and you learn by, my son and I can walk through the greenhouse and he'll say, Dad, this third row and number 1, halfway to the other end, has got a problem. Go take a look at it. So we can spot it relatively quick. But the local person would say, geez, they were doing good and then they died. What happened? You know what I say? They died. I don't know. Without looking at them, you know, or what variety they were. They're susceptible to some things. Some are susceptible to rust and blight and this and spot. And, you know, they got something they call blossom end rot. It's a lack of calcium. You can't put it on when it occurs. You have to put it on when you begin. The plants are like us. If they're fed well, cared for well, they're going to do well. If you just think you're going to stick them in the ground and do what Uncle Tom told you to do because his grandfather told him, and you're still buying the old-fashioned plants, chances are you got a good chance of failing.
Well, these are certainly healthy.